So our third member is on his way, so I'm giving him a couple minutes. An email being sent.
Oh, nice. Mine used to be Chewbacca from Star Wars.
There was an issue coming up in my ward, I said, but I think it's coming up, number 5. Dave Martin's. Oh, okay. Thanks. And Dave Bartley's on his way, hopefully up the stairs.
Yeah.
I was coming down like 20 minutes ahead. All of them, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's
We're just waiting for one member who's on his way for the quorum. Right back, hurry up. Right back, hurry up.
Let's give him a selfie and say,
Just do a scream.
looking at our watches.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I don't know where Joe went.
No, I just heard Joe.
I do. Okay. Okay.
Quick if I could. Thanks.
I hereby call the meeting of the Ordinance Committee to order, this being Tuesday, February 27th at 6:37. With me, I have Counselor Anderson Burgos, I'm Linda Vacan, and to my right is Counselor David Bartley. In chambers, we also have Counselor Sullivan. I'll entertain your motion if you'd like.
I'd like to suspend the rules and take up, make a motion to suspend the rules and take up item number 9.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So item number 9 was filed by Counselor Lopez in December of 2017. Ordered that the Ordinance Committee create an ordinance requesting that any city credit card or debit card given by the city must get approval from the City Council. Also, that the city treasurer provide a report to the City Council with the following details. Who has a debit card or a credit card in the city? A. B, treasurer and auditor to provide a report to the city council with each credit card or debit card for the last 5 years. C, that all active credit cards and debit cards be deactivated immediately, and that we get a printout of all purchases/transactions that the card has been used for. So I see a number of folks from our city hall here on this matter, and if you have information that you would like to provide to the committee, a written form would be appreciated. If you wish to give us a verbal report, we'll go in whichever order you choose. If you want to come into the chambers and sit and grab a microphone, that's fine.
That was fine. You can leave that one there.
Oh, they can pull the other ones.
Chairs. I'll tell you what, Sandy, why don't you
Yeah, they have long cords, so. Thanks. And just for the folks at home who may not know who's who, if you can just say who you are, if folks are watching.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Sandra Smith. I'm the city treasurer.
My name is Bellamy Schmidt. I'm the acting city auditor.
My name is Lori Belanger. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer.
Okay, so is there somebody who wants to begin?
I get to speak since this happened on my watch. I think one of your questions was, well, who authorized this card? So since I authorized it, I felt I should be the one to do the speaking. So what I want to do is basically tell you a simple story.
Bellamy, that mic's on, right?
It's green. Is that on?
So pull it closer to you.
Okay.
Okay, so people can hear it.
Is this any better?
No.
It's not on.
It's not on. Green light's on. These are not.
We can swap mics.
None of them done.
They're
I
lit,
think
but
it's the
they're
main,
not.
I think it's the main.
the main. Okay. Step back.
Sending them a text. Wonder if they're moving things.
The room is coming to
Gonna say
life.
it's like a squirrel or something.
Winchester House, isn't that the current
Oh, yes.
spooky movie? I wouldn't go to see it, I don't believe it.
I want to make sure that it is on. I'll have to go back to the beginning. Because otherwise, well, I don't see how it could be recorded. Unusual.
They're on.
There it is.
They're more than,
Boy, are they on.
I think they're a little too, I think they're a little too loud.
Thanks. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Just to make sure everything's on the record, I just want to officially open the committee meeting. We opened at 6:37, but just to be official, since the mics didn't seem to be functioning, the meeting is called to order. And with me is Counselor Anderson Burgos. I'm Counselor Vacan, and to my right is Counselor Bartley. In chambers with us, we also have Counselor Sullivan, and a number of professionals from our city department have joined us, and I'll let them introduce themselves as they speak. We have taken up out of order after suspension of rules, item 9, which was filed by Counselor Lopez on December 19th, 2017. Ordered that the Ordinance Committee create an ordinance requesting that the city credit card or debit card given by the city must get approval from the city council. Also, that the city treasurer provide a report to the city council with the following details: who has a debit card or a credit card in the city. B, treasurer and auditor provide a report to the city council with each credit card and debit card for the last 5 years. C, that all active credit cards and debit cards be deactivated immediately, that we get a printout of all purchases, transactions that the card has been used for. So, Bellamy, you have the floor.
All right, let's start all over again. So what my job to do tonight is really tell you a very simple story. The story of how the financial team of the city of Holyoke is trying to innovate in the 21st century. I gather there's all kinds of misinformation or fake news all over the social media, and my job tonight is to refute that and give you the facts. So I'm going to start with one simple fact, and that is that there is no city credit card. No one in the city has a credit card. We do have 2 debit cards. So that's what we will be talking about. But I want to underscore that it is not true that people in the city are running around charging everything under the sun to credit cards. That is fake news. So I want to tell you about how this came about. And to explain that, let me say that 2 years ago, thanks to the new finance manager at in the school department, the city financial team started to have a weekly meeting. The department heads in finance, as well as Anthony Soto and a couple of others from the schools. We felt if we met once a week, we could communicate better, we could solve problems before they happened, we could review policy to make sure everybody knew what they were supposed to be doing. We could talk about contracts upcoming, a whole bunch of stuff. It's been a huge success. We built teamwork within the team at City Hall, and we probably have, the City Hall probably has the best relationship with the school department that it's had in not just years, but decades. It's really working well. So about, 18 months ago, the schools brought to the meeting the idea that they would like to take advantage of some of the online discounts that various online vendors have. But they couldn't do that paying with a purchase order. So they raised the question whether there was any way the city could pay things with an electronic payment form. So we talked about that, and we sort of reviewed the history of e-commerce. And since I've lived through the entire history of e-commerce, unlike most people here, but some of us remember the days when if you wanted to buy an airline ticket, you had to go to a travel agent, and they would buy it for you. That was probably one of the first industries that adopted e-commerce, because now you buy your airline ticket online rather than going to a travel agent. After that, Amazon formed in its infancy stages, starting to sell things online. After that, a lot of the sort of educational, nonprofit, certification groups started using online payments to pay for certifications and so forth in lieu of checks or purchase orders or real money. And then in the last 10 years, there's been a proliferation of e-commerce vendors selling almost anything, generally with low margins and lower prices than bricks and mortar stores. And now in 2018, we have Amazon that's disrupting one industry after another. This year, it's the medicine industry. So we felt it was appropriate at this point to try to experiment with some kind of electronic payment. We chose to use a debit card rather than a credit card. When we'll talk about credit cards in a minute, but we felt it was, we could give people cash advances so that they could use their own credit cards to pay for these certifications or whatever, but we'd rather put the charge on a card that we controlled rather than give cash out to people. In terms of credit cards, the city has a long history with credit cards, generally not a happy history. Mayors in the past have had credit cards. Chief Scott had a credit card. Apparently Archie Donahue had a credit card, and he's the poster child for abuse since he charged his vacation to Ireland on that card, and it was collected back. But that's the kind of thing you don't want to, why you don't want to give out a credit card to individuals. There has not been a credit card in the last 5 years. The last credit card was the current mayor, who had one for the first few months of his term, but apparently the bureaucracy became overwhelming to deal with credit cards. So that was stopped, and a ban was put on credit cards across the city. So we now have, we set up, the financial team decided to set up a petty cash debit card, which we wanted to ring fence with protection so that it would not be abused. We determined that the maximum amount allowed on this debit card would be $2,500. We wanted one user only of the card, one in the city side and one in the school side. So on the city side, the purchasing director is authorized, and on the school side, the finance manager, who's the acting purchasing manager for the schools, is authorized. They and only they are allowed to use the card. The card is never given to someone else to say, oh yeah, go to Target and charge something. The card is also intended for infrequent use. And then we also follow good purchasing procedures. After something is purchased with the card, the item is put on a purchase order, the purchase order is then put on a warrant, and it's paid according to normal purchasing procedures.
Did you say after the purchase?
Yes, because when you buy it with a credit card, with a debit card, you're paying for it on the spot.
Well, I understand
Yeah.
that, but, so there's no procedure before the purchase is made to initiate the purchase?
Well,
With a paper flow and an authorization?
The user makes the request to the purchasing director, who I believe actually has the authority by state law to
Right.
spend up to $50,000 on her own approval. So it's between them to decide whether the expense is warranted.
Well, we'll get to that, but that's the
Yeah.
question. What is the procedure?
So what's happened up to this point is department heads will come in or request use of the debit card. And in situations where there's a time-sensitive issue, I've made the choice to go ahead and do the purchase. And the purchase happens in my office, online. And in some cases, on my lunch, I would meet the department head at a local retail shop to make the purchase, bringing along our tax exempt number. It comes back to the office, I get an object, an org code, and it's a receipt, and it's put through on a requisition, and then it's converted to a purchase order, so then it's sent to the auditor for proper booking of the codes. So it's very controlled. Right now, the card is with the city solicitor. I gave it to Paul yesterday. It's locked up, it stays with me and only me.
So
what I'm wanting to understand is what the paper trail from the initiation point of the department head to you is.
It's the receipt. Anybody can.
No, she's talking
Can
about
I answer
the
that?
request.
I'm-
She's talking about the request side.
I'm talking
Right.
about
Can I answer?
prior to the purchase.
Correct. Can I answer that, please?
Well, she's the one making the purchase, so.
Right, but I know where you're coming from. What happens is, as a department head, we go to the procurement officer and we say, I need to go online and I need to register one of my people for a school. Here is the object in the org. So it's already considered in my budget to be taken out. Once the purchase is done, we get a printout from our computers that show what the amount is. We take that, we attach it to a rec that the department head does under petty cash. It is then put to the auditor approves it, puts it on a warrant, and then it's reimbursed through the treasurer's office under a petty cash account, and we put it back into the account. So we make that account whole.
Right, but the question in the order filed by the counselor and the question that I'm asking is what the paper process is prior to the purchase. I work in a system, there's budgeted lines.
Correct.
There's purchasing officer. You still have to complete paperwork to initiate the purchase. That's what I'm asking our procurement officer.
Right, and that's what I'm saying.
Is there paperwork that was submitted to her before the purchase, is my question.
Yes, because she will not allow it to go through online unless she gets the proper paperwork from the department head.
So, to the department head, you're saying you're meeting folks and they are asking you to make this purchase and you're making the purchase. So what paperwork do they provide you with before you make the purchase?
I get a request from the department head, and with that request, I get the object and line code. And then we go ahead and make the purchase.
So if we're looking at a paper trail, how does that request come to you?
Verbally.
So is there any paperwork supporting the request before the purchase is made?
No. It's verbal.
I would submit that that needs to change. Because that's a very loose system if we're talking about audit trails and how things get initiated. I've heard some comments about fake news, and I've heard that initially the debit card had the limit of $2,500, but somehow, unless it's fake news that the Christmas tree cost almost $10,000, are we going to say that that was a verbal authorization and then a after-the-fact procurement order? How did that procedure happen?
I'll be the first to say that that shouldn't have happened.
Correct.
Wait, let me finish.
Well-
As I said, when we started the card, I set up a set of sort of internal rules for using the card, one of which no more than...
Could you share with us specifically what those were?
Yeah, no more than $2,500, one and one only user, infrequent use, and the card was to be used for one of three things. Either for a vendor who only sold online, or for a vendor who could offer a substantial discount, or third, for something that was urgent that we couldn't wait for a purchase order. For example, we had a flood in the annex a couple of weeks ago, and they had to rush out and buy some stuff. Well, actually they didn't, but assuming they had to go out and buy some stuff for that. That didn't happen that time, but it could have. So those are the three circumstances that one would use the card. Now, you asked about the Christmas tree. So the Christmas tree clearly violated that. I was not auditor when that happened. I'd like to think I would have rejected it, but we don't know what I would have done. We know the current auditor allowed it to happen, and he shouldn't have.
I want to
Case
step back a
closed.
minute, if you would. I would like to know what internal control procedures you set up when you set up these three rules.
Well, the first one is there's no more than $2,500 on the card. That's the key, the key rule.
Is that in writing anywhere?
Well, I have a written procedure for how you deal with this thing, but yes.
Okay, so then how, under this initiation of this debit card, did you set up for the procedure to be for a purchase to actually occur? I hear what you're saying is the general framework, but on your day-to-day actually having a purchase occur, what procedural steps did you put in place between whoever was seeking the purchase and the procurement officer doing the purchase?
There was no procedure for, other than a request to the purchasing office.
So,
I mean, it could be a PO that went to them that then couldn't be honored because they couldn't find a vendor that was not electronic, but however these, requests go to the purchasing director.
Well, right, but that's my question. Is the process that somebody submits a PO, a purchase
No, not
order?
necessarily,
Or is the
no.
process somebody just calls up, so you established no
No,
process?
didn't
in
feel that was
terms
necessary.
of-
We didn't feel that was necessary.
Looks like it might have been a good idea. Did I see your hand, Counselor?
Bellamy, I know you weren't the auditor, but Lori or Bellamy, can you tell me what object numbers the Christmas tree purchase came from?
I can. You want the number or what, just the verbal
Did
words?
they ever make a warrant?
Yes,
Okay, so the object numbers would be on the warrant.
yeah, correct.
Okay.
Correct. I know some of it was charged to the DPW and some of it was charged to Parks and Recreation. It was supplies in the case of Parks and Recreation, and I can't remember what it was in terms.
Lori, which of those departments made the request?
They both did.
So being who from each department?
Terry Shepherd and Mike McManus.
And you don't know the object codes, do you?
You want the numbers? I can give them to you.
Sure.
I got them. I just might not have the words for them. At least I think I have them, since I expected this to come up. Parks and Rec, it was object code 54220, which is supplies. And DPW, it was 52502, and I don't know what that one is, verbally.
Did the auditor
Would-
sign off on those? I'm sorry, Counselor.
Yes,
Would-
he did.
Would a Christmas tree come under supplies?
Yeah, I don't know where else you'd put it.
I mean, if you call it a holiday tree, I guess you can come under supplies, but
We don't have any other category for it, but it's.
Well, there's been
it's
two
general
categories
office.
over
It's sort of
recent
gen-
years.
Supplies is kind of general stuff, so.
And Lori, can you tell us how much this card has been used in the last 12 months?
I have a schedule for you.
Okay. Bellamy, does that have object codes with it?
No,
Can I have a copy of it?
yes,
Can we get the object codes?
sure.
Thank you.
Would you, would you mind giving this to the counselors? So just to continue, the card has been used exactly 18 times in the last 16 months, which sort of fulfills the spirit of infrequent use. So it's being used about once a month. It is not being abused, as some would allege, being used right, left, and center.
What was the time frame that you referred to with the 18 times?
16 months, 18 times in 16 months. Because on what I've given you the date every of use, and it started in December of 2016, and the last one was February of 2018.
Are these two different cards here? 'Cause you said-
There's the city card and the school card. There's two columns for each one.
Okay.
So let's talk about, just look at some examples. Something that's only available on e-commerce. Item one, U.S. District Court, and then the Board of Bar Overseers in 2018. All of those are bar registrations. They can only be done online. The way they're done is the legal professional goes down to the purchasing office, goes online and fills out what you have to fill out, and then the purchasing director walks over with the card and puts in the payment information. So the card does not leave the purchasing director's hand. That's one example. Let's talk about saving money. The last item is Indeed, which is a service where you can advertise for jobs. Recently, the Personnel Department placed some ads for jobs. It cost $450. It would have cost 2 times or more than that in the Republican. Another example you might find interesting is, let's see, resident parking stickers that Councilor Bartley was really intent on getting done. Mike McManus went out and got a quote for them, $450. Came back to purchasing. They said, we can do this better. They found an online source for $222.50. So we got the stickers cheaper and also faster. We got them the next day than they would have if they'd issued a purchase order. So there's the second example. The third example of use is, when do you need something urgently? there's something here, item 2 in 2018, the phone system at the DPW broke down in some way. The only live phone line they had was a fax line, so they had to go out and buy physical instruments they could plug into that line. Mike McManus went to Target. Lori on her lunch hour went up there, met him, and paid for the phones with the card. But the card has never been out of her hands. So those are some of the examples, and they all, except for the Christmas tree,
I want to clarify something.
fulfill those 3 qualifications.
The target, that was September 15, 2017. I just want to clarify
Right,
that.
oh, sorry, yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
just
I
wanted to make
misread. But those are examples of how the card was used.
So could you share with us who obtained these cards and who authorized the fact that the city would have a debit card?
I authorize it as auditor, because I'm responsible for financial procedures, and the treasurer obtained the card from our bank, because that's what a treasurer does. I don't do that. I don't have banking relationships.
And in terms of the auditor signing the warrant on the Christmas tree, it sounds like from what you're telling me, the department heads go directly to the procurement officer and request the purchase. The procurement officer makes the purchase. That makes me think the auditor was never aware of the purchase until after it had occurred.
Oh, the Christmas tree was a whole subject apparently of email trails well beforehand. I was not here, I'm not part of that, but there are plenty of emails
The
about
committee
it.
would ask that those be submitted to the committee as part of the records that we have sought from the various departments.
Somebody has them, I don't.
Please consider that a request that they be submitted.
Sure.
Council Bartley?
Yeah, I don't want, are you okay, Linda?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hey, thanks for coming by, everybody. Okay, so the one, Councilor Bacon asked about, since we're on the Christmas tree, let's just put a cap on that. She asked a question, how did it happen? There's a $2,500 limit, so Bellamy, you answered your answer, but I think Lori was gonna answer, so Bellamy, you weren't here when it happened, so.
Correct.
Okay, so you don't know how it happened. Lori, how did it happen?
The limit was raised from $2,500 to, I believe, just under $10,000 to cover the purchase.
The limit was raised by whom? The city requested it of the, so it's a debit card, the debit card is
I'll
issued
answer
by
that.
whom? Who issued the debit, did a bank issue it?
Yes,
Okay, People's Bank issued the debit card.
Correct.
Oh,
I'm going to answer that.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we did
yeah,
was.
just okay, because this is kind of a round table
Okay,
thing, so.
I'm sorry for jumping in.
This isn't the
there,
US
but I
Senate,
just
so
wanted,
you-
yeah, I
it's
just
okay.
wanted to make you aware also that in the process of our meetings with the school department and the financial team, we did send an email to Millicent and Heath and ask them, are we allowed to do a petty cash account? Because that's what we were calling it. We weren't calling it a credit card. We weren't calling it anything else. We wanted to know if we could do a petty cash. And they said a lot of surrounding cities and towns do have a petty cash. In fact, the gas and electric has a petty cash account. So rather than hand out $2,500 to the procurement officer and say, okay, go get a receipt, you reimburse the cash, and then once you spend that $2,500, you give me the receipts, or you give them to the auditor, and they put it on a warrant, we cut a check, the treasurer will reimburse the account for the $2,500. So we felt it was smart to do as online debit card.
No, I follow that, so let me just get back to.
So then let's get back to the Christmas tree. So what happened was they had a meeting, department heads had a meeting, which included the procurement officer. I believe Mr. Pischel was invited. I don't remember if he was there, but he was invited as the auditor because they basically needed his blessing. I was asked if this was going to go through, could I call the bank and do a one-time purchase with the debit card. I was allowed to do that, and then we immediately put it on a rec, sent it over to the auditor. The auditor processed it, put it on a warrant, and I cut the check to reimburse the petty cash.
Okay, and before that, Sandy, had you been given a copy of the acting auditor's internal controls relative to a debit card?
I wasn't given the copy, but I was part of the process.
Okay,
meeting
so-
at the meetings.
Oh,
I
okay.
knew the do's and don'ts of how the debit card was going to be used.
You did?
Yep.
Okay. And which department head wanted the artificial tree?
I believe it was a couple of department heads. It was Parks and Rec and DPW.
Okay, so the request to have an artificial tree, you're telling me came from the department heads, Public Works and Park and Rec?
And I believe the auditor was aware of what was going down.
No, I don't want to get the
Yeah,
auditor.
and
yet.
because
But
I'm
the-
just
the re-
saying
the
that,
request-
yeah.
The request came from those two department heads.
Correct,
Did it-
because,
And did they make the request, orally, or did they make it in writing?
no, they made it in orally, and they had called me, or I was invited to a meeting and said, this is what we want to do. I said, you know, there's a limit on it, and I believe the auditor wasn't there. But I don't know what happened. They just said, well, Kim, I said, I'll call the bank and see what we can do. And the bank said we could do it one time. Because again, the gas and electric has a petty cash, and theirs is more than $5,000. So it's not unlikely to have a one-time request to use your petty cash.
I guess if there's a policy that says that, to that effect, then possibly there would be an exception to that. But it doesn't sound to me, Sandy, like the acting auditor's internal control policy allowed for or provided for an exception. Is that true, Bellamy?
I agree.
I agree,
Okay,
and if
okay,
Mr.
so-
Bellamy would, if
Okay,
Mr. Schmidt was
I'm
here,
really curious, though.
I-
I'm really curious, Sandy, just hold
Okay.
on, just all due respect, because, you know, I respect you, and your position. But I'm curious, so a department head of that stature, not the mayor, you're not saying the mayor, because you didn't say the mayor, a department head of that stature, they requested so you're telling to me they must have researched this, and they must have come up with a supplier that, between their two budgets, and by the way, the code that Bellamy referenced was supplies other for Park and Rec, and their DPW, what you said, 52502, Bellamy, that's repair and maintenance. Those are the object codes. That's a Park and Public Works object code in which the 5,000 or whatever was taken. Repair and
So
maintenance.
that's where he had available money, I guess.
With all the potholes, really? Okay.
Repair and maintenance. Okay, but, so this request, just to be crystal clear, did not come from the mayor's office. It came from Park and Rec and Public Works.
correct,
Okay.
and the procurement officer
right.
was there.
And then, I am gonna wanna see a copy of the original sign-off, Bellamy, that I think you indicated Mr. Pischel and others, signed the warrant to that effect. And so you would have, I don't know if you have that on you, but.
No, I don't have it. I don't know. This was before my time, so.
Okay,
I
so
can only give you hearsay.
I'm hearing
So-
that there were emails floating around. I'm hearing
That's
that
what I've been
Mr. Pischel
told.
was aware,
And that there's a warrant. That's what I've been told.
Correct, because I
but-
wouldn't have been
but-
able to cut a check.
But Mr. Pischel signed off on the warrant prior to you placing the order, or
No, he signed off after.
he signed off after?
Correct, because if he had been at the meeting, he could have said, no, this is not what we're going to do, or put in here, I'm not going to speak for Mr. Pischel. All I know is I was asked by department heads, could you call the bank and see if we can increase the petty cash for this one-time purchase? I said, not a problem. I called the bank, they said yes. We took care of the purchase, ordered the tree online, and then it went on a rec between the DPW and the Parks and Rec. It then went over to the auditor's office, and it was taken care of, and I received a warrant and cut the check.
Was,
Hang on. Are you,
No, no, it's okay, Juan.
was the auditor invited to the meeting?
Yes.
He was invited to the meeting, and he didn't go?
He wasn't there, so I guess he didn't go.
Okay.
well, and we don't know if he was invited either.
Well, it's in the,
I believe it's in the emails.
okay.
And they will be provided to us. That will be very helpful. So earlier tonight, Bellamy shared with us that it's the auditor's jurisdiction to obtain the card, get the limit on the card? You're the one.
No,
you-
I felt it was to establish the process overall. The treasurer, and only the treasurer, can obtain the card.
Oh, so you are not
So-
the one who obtained the
No,
card?
no, I can't. I don't maintain, the auditor does not have banking relationships. The treasurer does.
Okay, but you set up those three parameters?
Yeah, I set up the parameters. I approve the concept.
Okay, so then, to our treasurer, so was the card obtained in December of 2016?
Yes,
Okay, and the other card, was that obtained in August?
they were both obtained the same time. The school department probably didn't use it as quickly as the city did,
Okay.
or whatever.
So when you
But they were
called-
both obtained.
The bank to get the one-time increase, had the tree already been purchased?
No.
Counselor Bartley?
Sandy, I think I have it, but can you just, when you say you cut a check, you just. I'm a little
Okay,
slow.
let me
Just- yeah,
explain. When
just
you
would
say cut a check,
Yeah.
it's not a manual check. It was off a warrant. So what happens is the process of doing a warrant, excuse my, saying cutting a check. It's when the process of putting it on a rec, then it goes on to a PO, then it goes over to the warrant, to the auditors put it on a warrant, then it's signed off by the auditor, then it comes to my office, and we process the checks. I spoke and said, cut a check, it's really processing the checks.
Okay, and by that, you're saying, so you make the payment on the debit card.
I didn't make the payment, I asked the bank to increase
You act this week, and the purchasing
and the
director.
procurement officer
procurement
ordered
officer.
the tree online,
She ordered online, so she punches in the numbers for the debit card,
correct?
okay? And those funds are wired then to the vendor? Is that how it works?
Well, it's like when you order something online, you use your debit card or your credit card.
So the
and
funds are
that-
immediately wired
Right.
to the vendor?
Correct.
Okay, and so when you say you cut a check, you're basically saying you're now accounting for it in the,
After it was put on a warrant, the
So-
check was,
right, so you're cutting a check, you say you're properly accounting for the transaction.
correct.
Yeah, that's all.
So in this meeting with the department heads where it was decided that this $10,000, I'm rounding, Christmas tree would be purchased, was there anybody in the room who thought this was a bad idea given the economic condition of our city?
I was just there to ask if I could get the bank to increase the debit card.
But if I'm understanding correctly, it was the
I
department
believe it was
heads-
already put in place with the department heads that had made this decision beforehand.
Well, except that as our treasurer, you could have said no, right?
Why would I, if it's really the auditor's call as opposed to,
To buy a $10,000 Christmas tree on a debit card?
okay, let me put it this way, if the money's in the funds and they can cover the expense, then why would I argue with them? I had two department heads saying to me, here's the X amount of dollars that I'm going to put towards this tree, so therefore, what can you do for me? I called the bank and got them to do a one-time transition.
Well, and I'm just
I'm not
speaking-
the auditor, I'm the treasurer.
Right, but as the treasurer, you are aware of our budget.
Well,
and-
no, I don't control other department heads' budgets.
But you are aware of the financial condition of the city and
I
you're
agree
aware.
wholeheartedly, and I feel that as the treasurer, I've done the best to oversee anybody's expenses. Unfortunately, we couldn't set the tax rate, so as the treasurer, I had to take out a $10 million short-term loan, and now the city's gonna have to pay almost $100,000 in interest. So again, I'm a small voice in a city department.
Well, Except if I'm understanding our auditor correctly, you're the only person in the city who could have called the bank to get that limit increased, that no one else in the city had the authority to do that.
That's correct, but I was also told by department heads that they had the proper money to cover the expense. So what am I supposed to do? Say no and
Yes.
walk away?
In my opinion, that would have been a good
Okay.
answer, but yes.
All right.
In my
well,
opinion, that would have been a very
okay,
good
then
answer, looking
somebody
out for the
needs to run
taxpayers.
for treasurer.
But thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions on this at this time?
If I could,
Counselor McGivern?
I just, a follow-up, Bellamy.
Sure.
Object code 54220 is, Parks and Rec, Parks is only recreation for Terry Shepherd, is a one-page budget. And its object code 54220 is supplies, which traditionally is $2,000 to $3,000 a year. So money had to be transferred into that account, which has to come before the city council before it's used. And the DPW 52502 comes under the budget under the DPW known as city property. And that line item is repairs and maintenance for City Hall.
Okay.
Christmas
say
tree does
so?
not come under repair and maintenance for City Hall. You can twist this one as much as you want.
I had nothing to do with it, so I'm just telling you what codes they used.
Well,
Remember, I had nothing to do with this. I was not
I'm not
here.
blaming
So
you.
I can't-
I'm not pointing a finger at you.
You sounded
but
like you were.
I'm saying repairs
It's
and
o-
maintenance
it's okay,
has
Joe, it's
nothing
all right.
to do with a Christmas tree. Does anybody like to comment on that?
I actually think you're missing the point, because my pet peeve is if you look at City Hall, it's nice to have one Christmas tree that symbolizes the holidays. Unfortunately, when you look at the City Hall, Parks and Rec fills this building with so many Christmas trees and so much tchotchke, it looks like cheap perfume on a French whore. It is awful, and that's where I think the waste is. In fact, there was this giant Christmas tree in this chamber, which when I looked at it on TV, I said, I bet Brenna can't see the counselors at this end of the table because the Christmas tree is in the way. So I think that the focus is on the wrong part of Christmas decorations. It should be on all the stuff money that's being wasted in this building and not on what was spent outside.
Well,
but that's my personal
I
opinion.
appreciate that personal
'Cause I believe
feeling
in-
because
I
now I
believe in
know
less is more.
Now I know you're missing my point. Nothing to do with a Christmas tree. We're in a crisis where we cannot find in past budgets, when you were around, $2 million. No one can tell us where that $2 million is.
Oh, we can.
Well, why doesn't anybody tell us?
Well, the auditors have, it's not on the agenda tonight. The auditor, we're finding out from the external auditors. We'll know in due course.
Why do we need external auditors?
Right.
That was under your watch.
Right.
Because it's complicated. It's not that
Hey,
easy.
so this is not about a Christmas tree. The little things add up to big things.
Right, and that's what I'm
when things
saying.
run the
And
way
that's what
people
I'm
want to
saying,
run
if-
them,
when you
not
run-
the way they should be run.
When you talk about a
It's
Christmas
one-on-one
tree.
finance, which I learned the day I walked in here in 1980. You don't spend a penny that hasn't been appropriated by the mayor or approved by the city council in the
Agreed.
proper account, signed off by the auditor, and makes a warrant.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay. That is not being practiced widespread, is what I'm seeing and hearing here tonight. Because it's like we're talking a different language. That's not you. I'm talking to everybody here. I'm talking to everybody that's listening. We need to get back to basics. We need to get back to the fundamentals of municipal finance. You don't spend money unless it's gone through every proper channel.
Correct.
Not a decision of who makes what, who pays for what, why. It's not an argument about a Christmas tree. It's an argument about a city that's in a tough fiscal shape, and you need to do it the proper way across the board. That's just my personal opinion.
How's that? So here's my opinion. I think that it is the worst disservice to the city that I've heard that a group of department heads sat in a room and verbally made a request for a $10,000 Christmas tree that then was requested to a bank to increase a debit card limit to be paid essentially like a cash withdrawal out of an ATM. I think it is stunning. I think it is dismaying, and I think it just smacks of arrogance of our employees to the taxpayers in this city. And I think to hear that people go in and say, I want this, and we pull out a debit card and pop it in the computer and do it, anywhere from $50 up to $9,999 is stunning. I've worked in a lot of organizations. Right now I work in a multi-million-dollar organization. They figure out how to pay bills, how to order supplies, how to get deals. Nobody has a credit card and nobody has a debit card. Now, I heard that the debit card was surrendered on the city side. Has the debit card on the school side been surrendered to the city solicitor? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know.
So I just find this extremely disheartening, but I would like to keep this tabled in committee right now. I also want to know, is the account closed or frozen?
No activity has been done on this account.
Since?
It looks like
February
February
15th.
2/15/2018, and that was Kim Counter trying to put out some ads for some jobs.
So at this point, the account is frozen. Nobody can access it to add charges to it. Yes?
Okay.
Is that true?
Correct.
All right, I just want to make sure we've gone through all the points in the order. Okay, so I guess we're tabling to receive the email correspondence relative to the Christmas tree purchase and to receive, is there anything else that we're needing to receive?
Sure. Well, I think we're going to get
Counselor Bartley?
the original copy of the original warrant that was signed off on by,
And object codes
Yes,
for the purchases.
thank you.
I wrote them down.
So object codes, warrant, and emails. Is there anything else?
yeah, one more thing. I'd like
Counselor Bartley?
your internal controls. Give a copy of that?
Oh, the procedure. I call that a procedure, yes.
And I would also, I don't even know how to begin to think that purchases are done by a verbal request. I mean, I can't even wrap my mind around the fact that that's, what is wrong with these mics?
Yeah, use this one, I think this is. Just turn it.
I just can't even wrap my mind around the fact that things are so loose down there. Somebody just goes in and says, hey, I want this, and the card comes out and boom, 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 it's done. I just can't even conceive of it. And so what I would like to see come back to this committee is a written procedure before anything is spent. And that's why I want us to go back to the check, so there's a check request, a trail, a path. We can see what's what. So Bellamy, under here you said 3 criteria.
Right,
No more than 2,500, vendor could give a great discount,
right.
and it had to be urgent.
Well, and fourth is, item is available only online. That's the other
Oh,
one.
only available.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
That's the other
gotcha.
one.
So,
That's the hang-up, that a lot of places only sell by online purchase.
yeah, so I'm having a little trouble seeing those criteria, really almost anywhere on this list.
They're everywhere on this list.
No, but being met. The under
Every one of
$2,500
these,
is
except
met.
for the Christmas tree, meets one of those criteria.
But what was the urgency? I'm not seeing the urgency that a check request could not have been put in, a thing be purchased, and the
Well-
check get cut.
Can I speak to that? Maybe the versus urgent, it should be time sensitive. I will say that several times early on, Damien from the building department had to board up some of our distressed properties. And it was of, an urgent need to lock up, to board and whatnot. So he asked to use the credit card or the debit card. So in that case, if he had to go through the steps of submitting a requisition, having the purchase order converted, getting it to the auditor for payment. He's looking at about 4 weeks to get a check to bring to Home Depot for a property that's somewhat in crisis. Or actually in crisis, I'm not gonna say somewhat. I know Counselor Bartley, Mike was trying hard to get one of your parking, resident parking orders, done in a timely fashion, and the labels were ordered, the parking stickers. The Bar of Overseers for our folks in the solicitor's office, a couple of those were for registration for Superior Court versus District Court, and they needed to be part of that group, so they needed to be registered. So,
I think we have different definitions on the meaning of urgent or a big rush, but I think that's something that needs to be cleaned up internally. But in the moment and in the meantime, everything will be coming through with a request and a check and a purchase order. If the department heads are meeting together every week, I would think they could all just come and exchange all their paperwork, and it wouldn't need to take 4 months to get a check cut, but,
No, it's not all department, just the finance department heads meet. It's not all department heads.
well, if they've submitted things and you're all there, it seems like it could happen a lot more quickly. How long did it take to buy the Christmas tree? From the request to the purchase, how long did that take?
I think it was over 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, we should be able to cut a check that quick.
No. That doesn't happen, I'm sorry.
Counselor Bartley, do you want to be recognized?
Okay.
Do we want to hear from our folks who have addressed this matter for the city for a number of years to see what input they might
Yeah,
have us be aware of for moving forward with procedural aspects?
Yeah, I would. I guess I just want to say thank you to the 3 department heads, and, then we'll have you circle back, I guess, another time, okay?
Sure.
All right. So I
Thank
guess
you.
I'd rather that.
And we look forward to that information, and everybody knows what it is that we need.
And then
I read
I'll-
off the list, so everybody's clear.
Then I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules to invite a former
Shall we go?
auditor and former purchasing director to come in.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You can decline if you so wish.
Why does everybody think we're mean? I don't think we're mean. Not yet. I think we're very nice here. I think we're always very nice.
Hello, hello, yep, okay.
Who does like you, David?
Well, yeah, I hear you. Thanks for coming.
Is that mic on, Dave?
Is your green light on? Is that mic
Oh!
working?
There you
Oh, now it's really on.
I want to start this meeting strictly that says that ever since this has been going on, my family has been affected. There are rumors around town, around City Hall, I should say, that I lost my mind and that I'm crazy. Quite frankly, I want to set the rumors straight. I want everybody to know I am crazy, okay?
Do
But
you
my
want to tell
love,
everybody your name first?
but my love for this city far exceeds, okay, my personal feelings and calls and everything else that I've been getting. But leave my family alone. It is not right. It is not fair. Joshua failed. Not any comment he said. It was true. And I have documentation here that I will not present tonight, but I will present at a later date. I did receive a call from a higher being, i.e. the state, and it is not my privilege right now to give that information away, okay? But I will say this much before I pass it on to Brian. Go ahead.
Could you state your name, though, so that?
Just for the
Yeah,
public
for the
that's
public,
watching.
sorry.
I'm Dave Martins, former purchasing agent for the city of Holyoke. I was there for 24 years. I also served in the purchasing department for 46 years. Never in my whole 46 years did I ever think of using a debit card. I cannot understand it. I cannot conceive the issue of a debit card, which is, to me, open to, I'm not going to say fraud, but misuse. Now, we did have credit cards, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to have to rely on Brian. About 10 years ago, we did issue credit cards because the mayor and other departments were having trouble getting on airlines because the airlines required some kind of documentation to be able to reserve. The problem was that the credit cards, we never got the reimbursement and the receipts needed to pay the bill. You know, if you don't pay your bill within 30 days, guess what happens? You get your 18% interest. In my case, it's a little bit lower because, quite frankly, I have a little bit better credit. Probably not as good as Joe's, but I'm pretty good. I'd like to address a couple issues, if I may. I am not here to criticize anyone. I find Laurie a great person. I find Bellamy a great person. I find Sandra a very good person. I worked for her for many years. When any department had an issue that they needed something right away, I could produce a purchase order in approximately 30 minutes at tops. And they would bring me, and I will not show you this, but a requisition, and I would convert it in front of them, print it out into a purchase order, sign it while they were there, and I would give it to them, okay? So the issue of a debit card being important on emergencies, I question, okay? And that's not questioning Laurie, Bellamy, or Sandra. That's my opinion. And the issue of going internet, I am not, except if you get on Facebook, I am not technical savvy, okay? Yes, you have a vendor out there that could serve cards for you, okay, for $10.99, for $500. But take a look around. Where's LaJustice? That's your taxpayer. He's gone, she's gone, okay? Where do we draw the line between internet and local vendor? Do we take the internet, okay, and the hell with the local vendor where our tax dollars are coming because we rather save $250? That's ridiculous. Indeed, I don't know why we don't advertise in the Holyoke Sun every Friday. I don't know why that we don't have our employment history online, that everybody can go to the city of Holyoke, that we need to go and pay $500 to advertise for a job. And quite frankly, when you lose Kim, God bless you, because I think everything is on its way down. As far as the district court goes and everyone else, they do take purchase orders, okay? They don't take debit cards. They will take a debit card. They will take a credit card. But they will take a purchase order. All you have to do is cut the purchase order, mail it to them, because they're an intergovernment department that will accept that. So if the law department needs to serve somebody, you cut the purchase order for $100 approximately. Bill comes in for $20, okay? You pay $20. $80 goes back to the department, okay? There's so many things that I want to talk about tonight, and I know I don't want to get off the line. and I don't want my family affected. And I would say again, leave my family alone. Take it out on me. I am myself. I am my person. I've worked for this city for 46 years, and I'm very proud of it. I love it. I think this committee right now is doing a lot more that I've seen in the years I've been here. And to sit back and have the council, and God bless them, say they didn't hear about it, when I'm hearing about it every day of the week, not from my family, from city employees that are so morale defeated that they just don't know anymore. Somebody has to tell me how, with no money available, that a certain office was painted with no money. Where did it come from? Is this mayor or is this council dumb to the fact that they don't care about you? They don't want you to know transfers, as Joe has said, need to come here. This folder will show you, okay? And again, at this time I can't, okay? But I guarantee you it will show you. With that said, and every other thing that's going on, as far as Home Depot is concerned, where's the emergency? When I was working at purchasing, I set up a charge plate for Home Depot that all they needed was a purchase order. So they have a documentation to know what we buy, and I can produce that within 1/2 hour or less. Take that credit card, take that debit card, school department itself, get rid of it. You don't need it. If ran properly and done properly, you can do it. And I did it for 24 years plus when I was in the buyer's stand. With that said, I think at this time, I'll leave it to Brian to say his few words. And I would just ask you at this time, don't give up. Don't give up. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
coming down.
Thank you so
We
much.
really appreciate it. Brian Smith, who needs no introduction except for people at home who may not know you.
My name is Brian Smith, former city auditor still living in Holyoke.
Lost a little hair, by the way.
I really don't have much to add to what Dave said, since we're focusing on this debit and credit card thing.
Right.
There are a lot of other things, I'm sure, that could be addressed and probably will be over time. I really heavily question the use of a debit card. I'll get back to why in just a minute, but a credit card actually has, better protections than a debit card does. And in municipal finance, a debit card is actually, I think pretty much you can try to call it, petty cash if you want to, but it's really not the same thing, in my view anyway. A debit card will take funds directly from the treasurer's bank account immediately. Petty cash is pre-authorized actual cash, and granted, that may not sound that may sound worse than than having it still be in the bank for a while. But the thing with petty cash is that it's supposed to be petty. It's supposed to be a de minimis amount of money that's available for small things, postage, emergency supplies, that sort of thing. And if a department really has to show that they have a serious need for some of those sorts of things on a little bit more regular basis than if they were to go out and buy, let's say, postage for just their office. Let's say if they were go to the post office to mail a package, and somebody didn't have, $10 on them to, to buy the postage, to come back and get reimbursed for it. I mean, sometimes those things do happen. They should be, pretty infrequent, though. But that, but $2,500 to up to $10,000, even I had heard that the gas and electric may have $5,000 or something like that in petty cash. I'm not sure, where those numbers, fall in the realm of being de minimis in amount. And especially if you can just call up the bank and say, increase it or decrease it, at will. It's just not quite the same thing. But the fact that it comes out of the bank, out of the treasurer's bank account, even before a warrant is actually cut, because when the debit card is activated or is used in a transaction, the money comes out of the bank account right away. And then, let's say if you have a defective item, trying to bring that back and get credit back for it, sometimes is difficult, especially for online types of things. And it sounds like most of the online things are for, really legitimate types of things that are not really product-oriented, but more service-oriented. So that's probably not quite as big of a concern. But, the fact of the matter is that it's just not, I don't think anyway, in the municipal atmosphere, that it's really that appropriate. But a credit card would actually be more appropriate than a debit card, only if it is one of those things that is if it's handled really similarly to the way that that was described for the debit card, where there's only one person that that has it, that it is controlled for minimal use, very specific use actually, even if you can define how it is specifically used, if it's just used for travel, or if it is just used for internet sales that are perhaps not product-oriented, that are service-oriented, that sort of thing. But the control around that, though, is that, you can challenge an item that's on a credit card statement and not pay it. And that's the whole thing, is that you're not actually paying for that service or the goods that are on a credit card until you get the bill. So you're putting the horse before the cart correctly in that case. You have the goods and services being delivered, and then you're paying for it. Whereas the other way around with the debit card. So that's where my discomfort is, primarily with that. The law is, I think, also very clear that no money is to leave the state. The city treasury, the bank accounts, basically, until there has been a sign-off by the city auditor and the mayor in the proper format, which is what we call an accounts payable warrant, that has specific language associated with it. You can have something that may be what's called an in lieu of warrant, something where that we did use because these things happen simultaneously, and there was really only one actually circumstance that I can think of, and that's with our debt payments. Those come out of the bank automatically, but that's agreed upon at the time of that the debt is issued. So at the time that comes out, we don't necessarily issue a warrant per se, but it would be an in lieu of warrant, and it has the same language, and it would have the same information on it. It just would be probably more manually handled at that point. But it is an authorization that has the mayor and the auditor's signature on it, no differently. So all of those transactions need that before any money leaves the treasury, and that's why I say that I think a debit card, violates that. I do. It's not the same as petty cash, even though, petty cash is still going to be authorized in advance, you know, specifically for petty cash. Cash is actually going to be coming out and sitting somewhere, you know, waiting for use. Whereas the debit card, you could kind of say that that's cash, but it's not quite the same thing.
Thank you. Counselor McGivern?
Thank you, Councilor Bacon. And David, Brian, welcome, and your comments are well appreciated. And Brian, if you got a little bit of magic left in that pouch, this city could use it right now. And David, I agree with you. I don't think I hope we're not headhunting here. I think we're trying to solve a problem that, because we don't know what the problem is, we don't know if it's solvable, which is a fundamental problem. And Brian, I appreciate reminding us what a warrant is, because that's the final release of money being paid and being used. You said the significance of the auditor and the mayor are the last two people to sign off. As you know, the appropriation process starts long before that, with the mayor initiating it, this body agreeing to it, proper line items, proper controls, proper accounts, and so forth. You spent a great tenure with us, and you were appointed one time for life. The life expectancy was longer, but you chose the life expectancy we got, and it was wonderful. What was your relationship with the mayor, despite the fact that you were appointed by the city council?
Well,
I mean, that's kind of a hard question, because you served with 6 mayors.
I was just going to say, I think you were, including yourself, there were seven.
I was trying to be general.
Yeah.
I was only an acting little guy there with a $5 million problem.
Yeah, no, it was, but with all of them, it was different. However, you know, it was all very, very respectful. And it was also one that, you know, I was able to follow, you know, the rules, I think, pretty readily, so that, you know, everything could be done, all financial transactions could be done, you know, to the best of our ability, according to the law. And it's the law, really, that's the guiding force in a lot of these things. I mean, we do have some, you know, the executive body does have some flexibility. Actually, I think it's the executive body that actually can, you know, unilaterally, if they wish, decide to use a credit card if they want to. It's I don't think that the city council, I mean, unless this body wants to do that, but I mean, I don't think the city council, you know, is required to vote, you know, to authorize one of those. I'm not aware of anything in the law about that. I think it is something that the executive body can do, as long as there are, you know, appropriate controls. And I would always, any of those things that are questionable, would always, you know, try to pass that by the Department of Revenue and our auditors, but primarily the Department of Revenue. But you know, all the mayors were different, but you know, it was we had good relationships, I think, overall. We disagreed on a few things, but you know, talked our way through it and got through them.
But you had a relationship with them, and each of the mayors had a role, especially with the relationship with the auditor and the city council. And that is, the mayor's job is to be the chief financial officer of the city, period. The buck stops right there. The buck starts right there. The mayor is responsible for each department that has a say or control. Every department has a budget, but each department has a say or control over the warrant process. Each department has a say or control over the treasury, the purchasing. And the chief financial officer, beginning and end with the auditor, signs off on everything. Okay. The issue now seems to be that the chief financial officer and Mayor Morse doesn't believe he has control or management issues to work with the auditor's office, with the exception of maybe Bellamy, who he appointed temporarily, and we thank Bellamy coming out of retirement for us. Sandy, who's elected and has a tremendous amount of responsibility. Lori, who's appointed, who replaces the king, who during those 46 years, and both of you I'm not going to say it because it breaks my heart to think of. No, both of you, the lack of salary increases, and I know it's not just you two, but is horrifying to what this city did to you guys and what they're doing to some department heads right now. But I'm off track here. And I'm not trying to knock Alex either, because what I said earlier was we have to get back to the fundamentals. Every department head over here, including Josh, are competent people that brought something to the table, just like both of you. Your wisdom and experience grew with years beyond what you brought to the table, which is what the city was blessed with. Each of these people have those competent and in their own way, including Katie Jakowski and others that participate in this, the abilities and something to bring to the table. What each of them don't have in great, it only comes with experience, is that managerial part of it. That managerial part of it of not just supervising a department, but also of interacting with other departments and being able to have that experience of interacting with the mayor's office. And God help us, they all love us, Juan, they really do. The city council is, the best part of being a department head in the city of Holyoke. If you believe that, I got a bridge I can sell you. But they are people that I think we do individually, I hope collectively this comes out, that we do appreciate what they do and what they go through and what you two went through for so many years. But we're missing something. We've lost it. And I can't put my finger on it. It's hard because, Bellamy said we're almost at a point where we're going to know what those numbers are. And as much as I want to know what they are, I'm afraid of them. But to develop a plan until we know what went wrong and when it went wrong is very hard. And I'm at lost. And I don't know if it's because we took it for granted and I don't think I took it for granted, but maybe we missed the boat in taking it for granted for what we had. And we've got to get back to that level somehow. You have any advice for us? Any advice?
Sorry. What can we do, or where do we go? So I give you credit for that. And I've known you so many years. You're a little grayer, but I use formula.
Got more hair than Brian.
But I think you're on the right track.
Well, I know we're going to keep working at it, and I hope we get there soon.
I think what's just to add to that, I think getting back to basics is very important. I know that there are a lot of transactions that occur every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, that require a degree of diligent oversight in terms of how they are recorded in the official books of account, in the general ledger. And if that process, if a particular transactions accounting method changes, then there are a lot of people that need to know, what it is that's changing in there, and all of them have to agree as to how that's going to happen. I'm guessing that if you're looking at a magnitude of $2.5 million difference between, and I'm throwing this out here again, I'm not being here, I can only guess based on what I've read and what I've heard, but that there's a difference between the general ledger and the treasurer's cash book of this amount, that there's, and I don't want to belittle it, but I'll say merely an accounting difference. There's probably just some debits and credits that just either were not recorded correctly, were reported one way or the other incorrectly, so they were recorded then in the books in the way in which they were reported, but shouldn't have been reported that way in the first place. Yeah, so there's just some mechanism in there that's just missing. Unfortunately, it sounds like it took a while for that to be brought up, and so it kept building and building and building to a point where trying to reconstruct that now is probably very difficult. I'm guessing. I say just from what I've read, but I'm sure that once that's worked out, that particular transaction then will then in the future be accounted for correctly, and you won't see that happen again. I have to hope that that's the case, but I have a feeling that there are probably a lot of other ones out there that are like that. I mean, I would do daily. I would be doing journal entries for transactions relating to tax title properties, foreclosures, and any number of specialty types of transactions that required special accounting procedures and special accounting journal entries to get them into the records in order to be able to get a balance sheet and a statement of operations at the end of the year so that we could get free cash certified, so that you could get you could balance the budget then using free cash if you needed to, and therefore set the tax rate on time. Those were the three main things that had to happen subsequent to June 30th. And those were the goals that we had with everything that we did throughout the year. And I'm sure those goals haven't changed any. I think it's just the methods that are being used, perhaps, that need to be tweaked. Some more than others, apparently.
I hope, and I think you're right, but I hope that's, not to oversimplify it, but that's a big part of it, because we can reach, new goals and we can tweak things, or I think the people that are responsible can do that once we get everybody in place. And I think it's something that, we all look forward to, so we can get on with all the good business of the city. And Brian, I would never put you on the spot, but those 7 mayors, I'm not going to ask you which one was your favorite, because I know your favorite. And it wasn't the acting mayor, trust me. I know it wasn't the acting mayor back in '91. But of those 7 mayors, which one, and I'll tell you what I've been saying for years, maybe the only one that could do his own budget without any of us?
Mike Sullivan.
Wow, I would have said Bill Hamilton.
Oh. God rest his soul. He was a man of his own making. I mean, he really was. What he thought he said went, but we had many discussions.
Before noontime.
I'm sorry?
Before noontime.
Before noontime. Yeah.
But I think you just woke Mike up in his bed.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
I
words,
want you
your
to
advice.
know that my association with Brian, he speaks softly but carries a big stick. I mean, he was in my office more often than not, but, well, maybe not more often, but he's a good man.
You both are.
Counselor Bartley?
Thank you.
Yeah, Brian, good to see you. Yeah, Dave, good to see you. I guess just a quick question for you, Dave. There was a comment made by the acting auditor earlier relative to the power of the procurement director. Do you recall in state law whether there's a sole source, that the procurement director has the authority to make a sole source requisition of up to $50,000? And I'm not putting. I just want to look up the law.
Right before I got up, and I almost had to run to the bathroom when the IG came out and said that 50,000 is now your limit for a bid, meaning a formal bid, meaning you have to advertising and everything else. Now, back to your comment is sole source. Yes, there is definitely, without a doubt, a sole source law, but it's incumbent on the purchasing agent, which I'm sure Lori does, was you check it out to make sure it's a sole source. Just because you say it's sole source doesn't make it a sole source to me, because you say you want a dump truck with white lettering and no one else does it. That's not sole source, okay? And yes.
Yeah, okay, so 50,000 seems a little bit high, but I'm just curious, so it's under 30B, and I can just look it up, I suppose, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I want. And then,
And let me clarify that for you, David,
Sure.
if I may, is 50,000 is over 10 to 50. You have to seek 3 quotes. When you receive a quote, you must put the names of the person you talk to down and the date you talk to the person. That way, if I come back out to you and say, I got a price from Dave, he's higher. He never talked to me. Now you document it. But yes, she's absolutely right. 50,000 is the formal bid required advertisement. I hope that answers your question.
yeah, it is, and then I'm just gonna look up the law again about procurements under $10,000, because it seemed like a curious amount. There was 99.97, so I'm just gonna look. My guess is that there may not be any strict procurement requirements about telephone quotes, but I'm going to look that up. Brian, let's get a quick question for you. I can't stand talking euphemisms. I just really, we should be talking real. So getting back to basics. So here's my basic, is that the executive respect the procedure which is in place, to not say that, well, we've got to get a 21st century system for this city. So we have in place, so we've heard about that now. We need a chief financial officer. Well, he's a chief financial officer, but he wants everyone to report directly to him. In other words, not to have a city council appointment authority relative to the assessor, relative to the tax collector, and particularly relative to the auditor. So I guess, your position is your position. You can see it if you want. I'm not, if you want to tell me what your position is on that. I mean, I kind of like the system the way it is. I'm so glad Bellamy's here right now. Bellamy, you are the acting auditor, but nevertheless, you have a duty to report to this body. I didn't hear anything from you saying that you were going to provide, before, when you wrote the internal controls, that you had submitted them to city council, that you'd given us any kind of a heads up. Right, no, and right. So I guess my feeling is these are not trivial matters. I'm not going to put words into anybody's mouth, but my friend Joe, I thought laid it out very well earlier to you. The urgency of the matter, the frustration that we have. This is not, and we say it constantly. We respect everybody here. Okay, everybody's well respected and admired. But the process, the way it's come down from the executive, in my opinion, has the reason why we're in the position we are. Because, you can tell us, Bellamy, that, he had a credit card for a month or two, it didn't work out, and now I'm hearing from a 25, 26-year veteran of the auditor's department that the credit card is the way to go.
Oh, well, no, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt there. I said that between the two of them, one is better than another.
Yeah, you probably would prefer neither.
Right.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay, you prefer,
yes.
yeah, between the two, that would be the way to go. Right.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian, for clarifying
Yes, I'm
that.
sorry, if I didn't make that clear, yes.
I'm glad you did make it clear.
I'm sorry, yeah, I prefer
in a
neither of
municipal
those.
I'd
Yeah.
rather not have either. So I agree with you completely.
I mean, if we need to reimburse an employee for the use of that, then,
Right.
if that's
But
been approved, then fine.
in,
But
in deference to the procurement director, I have to say, because I look at this now, and I know what the Board of Bar Overseers requires, and I see payments here for the BBO cards. They require me to, I can't pay on a credit card without paying a fee. So they require me to do it a direct withdrawal from my bank account to get my BBO card. So, I could see maybe one or two exceptions here, but on the other side, of the coin, I could send in a check too. So there's that. That option's still available. I just choose not to, just because it's more efficient. But a municipality and any attorney can send in a check, a physical check. So that option is still available. And by the way, you have 45 days. So after your card expires. So there's no emergency in the world where they couldn't get a check written in 45 days. So you wouldn't need to pay on a debit card other than pure, forever, their own reasons. But there's no reason not to. So Brian, just on the system the way it is, do you want to, with the city council appointing the auditor, would you want to would you want to see a change in municipal government at this point?
Well, I think that having a true reporting relationship between one executive level person and the city council, as I'll say, as a board of directors, as it were, or even if you want to call yourselves an ad hoc audit committee of a board of directors, I think that's important. So the current relationship, is important to meet that, I think. I think you find that, a lot of chief executive officers in corporations are allowed to, appoint their own, appoint a chief financial officer, but with the blessing of the board of directors. Not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, I believe that is the case. So if there was to be that kind of appointing authority type of relationship for a finance director / chief financial officer, I think that would be
And Brian,
helpful.
I agree with you. So here's a thought for the mayor. Get us a couple of candidates, bring them in here, we'll interview them. Is that, this is rhetorical, but I don't think that's a hard get if he wants to do it. So instead of coming up with this cockamamie excuse that the system's antiquated, bring us some candidates, let them apply to the post from the personnel office, which hopefully we still have a personnel director at some point after April, but God knows where that's going to be, because we've been an acting personnel director for a long time. Bring us the candidates and we'll interview them. I don't think that's super complicated.
Unfortunately, you have the residency requirement, I believe. Is that right? For this position, it was when I was here anyway.
There is a residency requirement,
and that does make it difficult. And that it just does. It's just
well. How about this? And we almost had somebody in here who was a Hadley resident, and we worked it out so until we had whatever happened on the floor about his salary, which I didn't support that cut.
But he was going to move.
He was, yes. So
Right.
the council president at the time had worked out something, to move in 6 months. And he and his wife and his family were good to go with that. And they were in the process of doing that.
Yep, they were.
So I would suggest to you and to the mayor that work with the city council president, and I'm sure this body would be, if it's 6 months or 8 months or 12 months, I'm sure there's some flexibility. But bring us the candidates. We had a dearth of candidates for 2 years. Or we had none. And then, when we had a candidate, then we had another couple of candidates that didn't work out. And finally, Jimmy Leahy posted something on Facebook, and we got Josh. So that's how that came to pass. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Just one more suggestion, and I don't want anybody to misread what I'm about to say, because I think it's a fine firm. I think it's above reproach. I think it's probably one of the better ones. But has any consideration been taken to alternate every couple of years our outside auditor, that maybe they may see something that...
Oh, Dave, you're absolutely right. And that's a decision made by because the executive has that power under 30B. Just to
Oh, I
make
didn't know.
Well, that's exempt under 30B.
Yes, it is.
So Melanson, yeah, absolutely. Melanson Heath has been doing this ad nauseum. Let's move on.
But if it's an ordinance, David, then
It's not an ordinance.
Yeah, but if it is,
Well, it's not. So that would be another way, a fresh set of eyes, for sure, Dave. That's
Okay.
and I'm glad you said it on the mic.
And in light of that, I was thinking about that also. Isn't it an industry standard that it's a good idea to switch out at least every 5 years for an outside auditing firm?
It's probably more acceptable, but you still find even the largest of corporations will still continue to just keep their audit firms. Not that that's right or wrong either way, but yeah, I mean it doesn't hurt, but at the same time it actually would probably cost more. Not that that's really the guiding factor here, which is why it's taken out of Chapter 30B. It's more that it'll take more time because each one has to start up basically their work papers from scratch. It's just more time consuming, but it's not a bad idea. It really isn't. No.
Not seeing anyone more
Well,
with,
first of all, I want to say thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to the treasurer, procurement director, acting auditor, and I'll motion to table.
yes, I want to thank everybody for coming down, and we will table this item to a future date, and we look forward to receiving the information quickly so that we can take it up at our next meeting in 2 weeks. And again, thank you all for coming down and sharing the information.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to table.
Motion to table.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can we just take a
Yeah,
2-minute
motion for a
recess?
2-minute recess.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'll be right back.
It's, the Soldiers War Commission's gonna have custody and control over veteran services. We'll see if it, we've had kind of, the Veterans Department finally chimed in. And, it was drafted and redrafted until about 4 o'clock this afternoon. I was like, emailed every department I could think of months ago. So, but the Soldiers War Commission is going to kind of handle all of it. Purple Heart Trail has a procedure now. That's going to be really good. He wants to do there's a war hero banners that go up, I guess, in some cities. But I don't know enough about it yet to put it in there, but I think it's something maybe to look into. So you basically kind of recognize family members throughout the wards and put banners up. And it's a program, I guess, that I was unaware of.
I just recessed for 2 minutes. We're coming right back.
Oh, that's okay.
Put it in the story.
You know I was joking, right? I mean, yeah, okay, yeah.
Or they'd be here.
Well, not about, the quote was good. I was joking about the quote.
All right, well, we'll just table it.
I was joking about the cries and whisper. You know I was kidding about that. Yeah, okay.
We're sportsmen. This is 2 strikes, 3 strikes, you're out.
I know, I hear you.
We take one, so I can be
All right, I call the meeting back to order. Thank you for that indulgence on the 2-minute recess. Okay, so we'll go back to regular order. So item 1 is previous meeting minutes.
Motion to take up table?
All in favor?
Aye.
So we have the minutes sent to us for January 23rd, which everybody should have had a chance to look at, and 2/13, which are more recent, but I did have a chance to look at them, and they looked in order to me.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the minutes are approved for 123 and 213.
Motion to take number 2 off the table?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The street vendor applicant was spoken with, but our administrative assistant, Ryan, thinks there may have been a little difficulty with the communication and understanding. And so, without any negative impression to be given, I would ask that we table it,
Oh, sure.
just to be sure they can come in the next time. He wasn't sure if they were clear on what needed to happen.
Yeah, I'd love to have them come in, so, so motion table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would just note, I think their primary language is Spanish, and he was not, he just wasn't totally sure.
Madam Chair, I know that we got an email, but I just, what's that, senor?
I'm sorry?
I said I can talk Spanish.
Well done. Just for, if we could take items 3, 6, and 7 of the package and just leave them on the table. I know we don't have to, but I just want, just for,
Yes, and that is at the request of the maker who
Yeah.
could not be here
yeah.
tonight.
Yeah,
Oh, and I did,
Nelson sent an email.
I did neglect to say at the beginning of the meeting that both Counselor Roman and Counselor Lisi had notified me today that they could not make it here tonight.
So just a motion to table, take 3, 6, and
Leave
7
on
of the
the table
package
3,
and leave them
6,
as
and
on the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And then, I think we're gonna do with, number 4 is, well, just motion to take off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4, filed by Counselor Bartley, ordered that the DPW consider a 4-way stop sign at Washington Ave, Charles Street intersection.
Yeah, this is just for the constituent to request, because this was a constituent request, which I normally put that in the order, but I neglected to. And Mike McManus was here a month ago, and he said he would circle back with the HPD crash report. I know that the
Oh, okay.
constituent that lives there had her bushes wiped out by somebody who just kind of neglected to pay attention to where they were going. So I think we're just waiting for the crash report, Madam Chair.
Okay.
So why don't we just table to a month from now when
Okay,
Mike's back,
to end
okay?
of March.
Yeah, till when Mike's back.
Okay.
So motion to table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I'll table it to the end of March.
March.
Oh, look who's here.
Oh! Motion to reconsider?
Second.
Yeah,
All in
sure,
favor?
yeah,
Wait,
sure.
I'm sorry, we did not see you come in.
I just walked in.
Okay.
Well, thanks for coming down. Sure, come on in. Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
So you want to make a motion to reconsider,
Yeah,
take up item 4?
Yeah, motion to reconsider action and take number 4 off the table.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so item 4 is before us, filed by Counselor Bartley, relative to the 4-way stop sign at Washington Ave and Charles Street.
So I was here last month about this. The intersection doesn't warrant a 4-way stop, but we did go back and take a look at the geometry of Washington and Charles and how Chapin Street comes into that intersection. Chapin turns into Washington.
Oh, okay.
And based on the curve of Chapin, how it has a corner coming into the intersection, with engineering judgment, there's limited sight distance if you're at Charles and you want to turn on to Washington to look up Chapin Street. And based on that, it could warrant a stop sign at Chapin Street.
Okay, so at Chapin in Washington?
Chapin and Charles.
Chapin and Charles.
Oh, so make it a 3-way.
A 3-way, yeah. But the Washington would be through, because if you're at If you're on Charles, on either side of Charles, you do have clear sight distance
Boy, Mike,
on
I think that
Washington.
makes a lot of sense. Man, I'm glad you're an engineer, but I've never, that actually makes a lot more sense than a four-way stop sign to my mind. And I have a feeling the constituents up there would really support that, so, yeah.
So you want to make a motion on that?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adopt the recommendation of the DPW superintendent and make the intersection a three-way stop sign with a new stop sign added to Chapin and Washington.
And I can, it is by ordinance, so we can get the language to Crystal before the next city council meeting.
Crystal, you good to go with that? Where's your microphone? Well, you're gonna talk to it, you gotta turn it on, sorry.
Yeah, because they're watching you on TV, maybe.
So I just gotta get a second on that one.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I need a motion to take up,
Well, you want to?
let's see, what else do we have for Mike?
You want to give him a head, we have Counselor Graney's.
Item 5.
Motion to take number 5 at the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Filed by Counselor Greenie, order that DPW places a stop sign at the intersection of Judith Street and Sheehan Drive. There have been multiple instances of near collisions with cars turning from Judith Street onto Sheehan Drive without stopping. This is a constituent request.
So we did a traffic study there where we put the traffic counter on both streets to see what kind of volume there was and also the speeds of the cars. So what we found was that Sheehan Drive had the most traffic with about 250 cars per day. And then Judith had about 100 cars per day. And the 85th percentile for the speed for Sheehan and Judith were 26 and 23 miles per hour respectively. So it's a very low volume street. It's a residential neighborhood. You're only using those streets if you live in that area. And the speeds were relatively low for the use. Judith comes in perpendicular to Sheehan, so it would be a three-way stop. But if we look at it as a four-way stop to put a stop sign on all sides of the intersection, there are certain criteria that need to be met in order to do that according to the standard engineering guidelines, and the volume that we had and the speeds that we had don't warrant that.
And you've attached that explanation for us.
And then you can get into a single stop, so where you would put a stop sign on Judith Street and allow Sheehan to be a through street. And again, there's guidelines for that, and because of the very low volume, it doesn't meet that. So then you can get into engineering judgment. Have there been accidents? I mean, we have reports of near misses from a resident. You can look at sight distance. Is there a sight distance issue where you can't see clear enough down the road before pulling out from Judith onto Sheehan safely? And there aren't sight distance issues. So the next step down would be putting in a yield sign. So what a yield sign would do is it would define who has the right of way at that intersection. And it would tell people on Judith that they don't have the right of way. That the people on Sheehan have the right of way.
So does it come in kind of like a V?
No.
The streets, or are they,
No,
they're regular straight?
well, it's not straight like a grid type straight. This is Holyoke after all.
Well, I know,
but it's, so what do you think, Mike? A yield sign should
I
go?
think a yield sign,
that-
Yeah, I think I think that'll sort of save the day right there.
Okay.
So where would you put the yield sign on
Judith.
no, roger that, but would you put a yield sign on both those lawns or in the street, or we just put one yield sign up on the right-hand side?
One on the
Right-hand
right-hand side.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, motion to accept does that need an ordinance change? No, right?
I'm not sure if yield signs are by ordinance.
Well, regardless, motion
make
to,
a-
motion
yes.
to adopt the DPW superintendent's recommendation
And put
Second.
into legal form as required.
and put to legal
Yeah.
form as required.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so, and that one's for Howie.
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
following up. And I think that was it.
yeah, Mike, the other three we tabled relative to the parking.
Okay, so for Ivy Street or Ivy Ave,
That was per the request of the maker of the order.
okay. And then there were 2 handicap.
Yes, the maker of the order indicated that he wanted to check something in the area. I guess one was recommended to deny, one was, I forget, maybe it was approved. But he just asked that we wait because he's planning to go down there. I don't know if he said with you or somebody, but he asked us to table them. And we have no information
All right.
further.
And then the other one was the name change of Coit.
Oh, yes. Oh, by all means, we have to finally get
Oh.
that done.
A motion to go out of order, Madam Chair, and take off the table item number 11.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, item 11, filed by Counselor Bartley, that the name be changed of the portion of Coit Street that is west of Hillside Avenue, and it should be completed to say to Merrick, right?
Right.
Right, yeah, and it's east, by the way. We amended that, we
East.
amended that
Oh,
about 3 years
how many-
ago.
okay,
Somehow,
east.
somehow it never got into the order, but
All right. And I do have the letters that were sent, and you should each have them relative to that
Yep.
in front of you tonight with a grid. Okay. Thanks, Mike. So you want to just go over this?
I thought we were all set with
I think
this,
we are.
And that it was gonna happen, that it's almost like a slam dunk.
I think it is a
Right.
slam dunk, right? So,
Yeah.
Crystal, you're okay with this? Okay, so,
I think just somehow the paper flow stopped, and then, I don't know.
yeah, I'm glad it got brought back, and
But anyway, here,
thank John,
Thank-
because this is,
It's
you know, it
going
was
to
brought to me
happen.
by constituent, but John's the one that came up with the idea, just leave it at Merrick. I think that was a great idea.
Yeah.
So, John, tell John I said thanks for that idea,
right.
all right? So-
And we thank everybody for doing everything promptly, and this is no reflection on
No, it all worked
others
out.
doing their work. It was just a matter of it getting through, because the
Oh.
meetings were all held.
Yeah, I think,
long time ago.
I think that'll make it easier for motoring public and for that constituent
that
to
one.
Coit.
I'll take the hit on that. I lost track of it.
All good.
All right,
So
so
motion
we just
to-
need to accept it or adopt it?
Motion to receive and adopt the recommendation of
Nice.
the DPW superintendent and the Board of Public Works.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
We finally got your order done.
72 Hitchcock, Mike. Oh, I'm gonna keep saying it. Oh, don't worry, I do. Because she calls me.
I'll accept a motion to take up item 8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 8 was filed by Counselor Sullivan, that a complete review of Chapter 42 Fire Prevention and Protection be undertaken. We've understood that a few months ago, there was language available, but nobody came down tonight where we thought there might be some folks. So Counselor Sullivan said that he would reach out again, and so we'll put it forth to the next agenda. We have no other information coming before us to,
Yeah, Madam Chair, because we've had this on, I think, many agendas.
yes, we have. But I know
So-
there is language out there that's been developed. I'm not sure what's
Right,
holding
so,
up the,
so, if I may?
sure,
So I was just hopeful that instead of Council Sullivan's done a great job in this, I've already said it on the mic. So if we could just get Ryan involved with the department head at the fire department, with the fire chief and the deputy fire chief, Jeff Preskopowski. If we could get Ryan involved with that, just through an email with a copy to Mike and a copy to you as the chair of the committee, saying that we are going to appear, we are aware of this date, or pick another date that works
Right,
before you
or
put it
let
on-
us know, yeah.
Before you put it on yet another agenda and they don't show up, because, you know, this is getting a little silly.
Right.
Thank you.
Point taken.
So motion to table.
Second.
All in favor?
Motion to take number 10 off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item 10, filed by Counselor Jordan, that an ordinance be created or current ordinances be amended to address the placement of memorials, dedications, naming rights, and related matters on public property in the city of Holyoke. Now, I had passed out one draft, but Crystal gave us an updated draft.
Chris was doing a
And
yeoman's
now
effort here,
I
but
just have to see which
This
one's which.
There should be a stack of
Oh,
like
is there-
stapled ones right in the middle in front of
Okay,
Linda that are
I just
fresh.
picked them up, so I think these are the fresh ones. Stapled.
Stapled,
You're-
okay.
Throw out the unstapled ones.
This is the staple.
Here you go.
Okay.
So ignore the unstapled set.
Ignore.
Joe, you want a copy?
Oh. We do.
Oh, you actually should have one because I made enough for 5, so there's extras.
Absolutely. It's okay, I wrote notes on the back of it.
All right.
Okay. So, do you want to suspend rules and let Crystal walk us through it, or do you want to just take a few minutes and look it over?
I'll suspend rules.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Crystal, it's been a while since any of us looked at this, and it had been,
Right, and this has been an ongoing draft for the last couple of days. As recently as this afternoon, I made some extra changes. We've been in contact with Jesus Pereira from Veteran Services, I believe. Brian Willett is somebody that's a contact for the Purple Heart Trail. Counselor Bartley was involved with that Purple Heart Trail. When we first started putting signs up, he was heavily involved with getting the start of that going here in Holyoke. So it's been a concerted effort. The beginning part, the purpose, procedure, and criteria is all something that you've all seen. I did make a change, so this middle part of Soldiers Memorial Commission, it used to be Veterans Park, but it makes sense to not have a specific designation because there's actually, it's codified that the Soldiers Memorial Commission is going to have care, custody, and control of any existing veterans memorials within the city, so it's kind of all encompassing of Veterans Park.
is it the same group?
It is the same group.
Oh, okay, okay. They're
right.
just wearing two hats.
Well, so they would have control over Veterans Park, any veterans memorials that would go up in the city, any future memorials, any monuments, buildings, all of that. Soldiers Memorial Commission handles anything related to veterans.
But are those the folks that we know of as the War Memorial Commissioners?
I believe they're one and the same.
Okay, okay,
They wear a lot of different names.
okay. I just wanted to be sure. I was getting lost in the alphabet soup there.
And then we finally nailed down what I believe is a good procedure for the Purple Heart Trail. So as you drive up 202, you see a lot of signs that'll have the little Purple Heart medal on them. You can sponsor those signs and actually put a sign in. And there's certain criteria of who can sponsor. It's not just anyone. The Military Order of the Purple Heart has that criteria of who they allowed to sponsor. So it's an application process. Our Veteran Services Department is going to create some sort of application that will allow people to submit the application as well as a $100 donation. And then our DPW is going to get those marching orders from Veteran Services to put the sign in. And then they would control it just like any other sign in the city. And then the flags of the city of Holyoke, this has been kind of a labor of love to figure out how we want to control the flags. If it's a city-managed flag, then the mayor can authorize whether to set them at half staff, bring them back to full staff. There actually is a procedure that comes down from the Commonwealth as well, the Bureau of the State House. They send out notifications when something happens, if all the flags should be lowered. That would include the municipal flags. So rather than have specific dates on here, that's something that the Commonwealth controls. So as they make new dates, God forbid there's more to come, we don't want to have to keep amending this, so I'd rather just have it as the Bureau of the State House notify, or as they codify new dates, new significant periods, that would all just come down from there. Kind of like we reference ordinances by number rather than specifics. It just helps move it along. There's another organization that was brought to my attention that may be something to amend later down. It's the Hometown Hero Project. It's sponsored banners that would hang in the city, and they display local veterans. This is a procedure and a project that I'd have to look more into, but it sounds really interesting, and we could utilize it a number of ways in the city, whether it's for each ward. If a family wants to sponsor a banner, we could hang it for a certain period of time. Some places do it from, say, I believe it's September to November. It seems to be a significant period of time where a lot of veterans are honored. Or you could do it all year, and then the banners would come down and be given to those families. So it can be ward by ward. It can be just down our main streets in the city, Main Street, Dwight Street, High Street, however that wants to be done. But that's not something we've got enough research on to have in here just yet, but we wanted to have some sort of protocol so that people would know how to go about honoring their loved ones and people of significance in their lives in the city.
Thank you. Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, so Crystal has been really working hard on this, along with Jesus Pereira. So I just want to clarify a couple small things, and I want to advise the counselors that are here of a couple things I picked up in the last week or so. So just the background, the Purple Heart Trail really came about because the Military Order of the Purple Heart came in and gave us an award as a city council, which is still not hanging in this chamber. I went in Ryan's office just to see if it's there, because it was leaning against a table back there for the last, 4 years, and I couldn't find it. But I'm assuming Ryan has care and custody of this. So when they came in and honored us, I decided that we should file an order to honor them. So this body had it, and we put it into ordinance. And if truth be told, we were talking about, making a street, and then Councilor Shatnoff, really, because we were just kind of almost in a roundtable discussion, Councilor Shatnoff really is the one that said, why don't we just make it all Route 202? Yeah, lock and load. So that was really, it really started with, I filed the order, but it was everybody pitched in, and then Jen kind of said, let's make it all 202. So that's really how it came about. And then we had a whole big ceremony and really some really nice coverage from the paper too. So that was really, it was really good. And then we had a ceremony at the senior center. So, and then ultimately it went up. So now we've got, but I get from time to time, how do I get a sign up there? So this is very exciting about the brochure. So that is a really good piece of news. The other thing I wish we could consider, but I'm not sure if it fits, but I've been in contact with the Historic Commission now for probably 4 years about putting not just the missing city governments here, but the old time cities. So Ryan and I, several years ago, took a little tour of City Hall, and we found all the photographs from going back, I think, to the certainly early 20th century of the city governments kind of piled upon each other way upstairs in this building. I mean, way up like on the 4th floor. We took a tour with Olivia Mausel and Ms. Yonkers, who's a commission chairperson. And that's how we got the process going. And I would constantly talk to the former DPW superintendent and then now the new DPW superintendent about putting up the past governments. And the good news that came in from Olivia this week is that finally 3 of the past governments are now done. So we're just waiting on the DPW superintendent, I didn't want to bother him tonight, about where they're gonna go. So I believe they're going to be, he's just trying to figure out a way to hang them up, and I think they're gonna be put in the, oh, Mike, so maybe Mike can speak to that. So, yeah, Mike, so great, I'm glad I don't want to bother you. So Mike, we were just talking just kind of extemporaneously about the past city governments, and so where are you with that? Madam Chair, may I suspend the rules, allow me to speak?
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Turn the mic on.
I got an email from Olivia tonight that said VTech just finished 3 of the portraits. And what he's done is he's replaced the glass with a UV resistant glass or plastic, and the backing on some of these portraits is becoming cruddy, and the frames have gotten a little disturbed from moving. So VTech has repaired 3 of the portraits. We've bought portrait mounting hardware, and the intent is to put them outside, put 2
In the main hall?
in the main hall on
Oh,
either
great.
side of the door.
Yeah, why not? That's as good as anywhere.
I got a call from University Products that the mounting hardware came in today, so we've picked it up. We have it in hand.
Polio Company.
Oil company. So I think this week we might be able to get them up and have them on display. And
Okay.
then, so there's a number of other portraits that are still up there, and we'll get them to VTech to also rehabilitate, and then we can start circulating the portraits.
So,
A reveal? That would be nice.
well, yes, I was, so that's, Mike, that's really positive news. So do we need to speak to that in this thing, or is that just something we can just do?
Yeah, because this,
Well, yeah,
is this
'cause
really about, let's see,
Well, it's really about historic monuments and
Right.
memorials?
Memorials.
Yeah.
I don't know
Is
if
it, are we stretching it?
if I'm going outside the lines, that's fine. We can pass on it for now, but I would like to just have instead of me, at some point, I'm not gonna be like my hero Joe McGivern and stay here for, 42 years. So, okay, 39. So, I mean, at some point, somebody else is gonna be,
Well, you'd be looking at, so if you look under procedure, you'd be looking at whoever has the custody care control of City Hall, and you'd make a request to them of putting in your memorial or dedication or whatever you'd like to do.
Could we add,
should we add it in here?
could
I
we
guess
add
is my,
portraits?
I'm not saying
in
we should, I'm
here,
just
or is
saying
it
that would
going
make sense.
too far?
I don't see why not. I mean, wouldn't that just be a
put
memorial,
portraits.
a portrait of somebody?
Well, it's, Chris, it's just like these up here, except they're,
I mean,
100
we
years
could
old.
do, we could add portraits if you want. I don't know if hanging artwork is really
We don't really
something we
need
stress
it?
too much.
Could we do it under this without adding language, do you think? I mean, would it fall
Well,
under?
we could amend the draft and just have it, include, portraits.
Well, the portrait of the specifically of the past city governments. I think that's really what, I'm not saying just any kind of portrait. I'm not saying just specifically the past city governments. So, and I'd like to add language in there to get the involvement, because, without Olivia and without Gene Jonkers really kind of carrying the ball on this, I don't think it gets done. So I certainly would want, a la the War Memorial Commission deals with the Purple Heart Trail, while the Historic Commission should deal with the
Portraits?
yeah, now I'm just one vote here, but that would be my take
Well,
on
no,
it.
but I mean, we're talking about the language. Is that a motion to amend the language?
So moved.
So to add portraits of past city governments, and where are we putting the thing about the historical?
Well, similar to how the Soldiers Commission kind of handles the Purple Heart Trail, the Historic Commission would handle the
Oh, so we would add,
yeah, the whys and the wherefores of the city governments,
Okay.
and then just as similar to what you had as when the Purple Heart Trail signs go up, so approved portraits shall be installed and maintained by the Department of Public Works. So she already has perfect language in there under procedure Part
yeah,
B.
so we just put historic commission above.
Yeah,
Yep, So that's a further amendment?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
72 Hitchcock.
So, what is the will of the committee? Do you want to hold this and look at adding in the banners part, or would you rather
Well,
move forward with this ordinance and then down the road we could amend it? What
No,
is-
I'd like to table this just to the next meeting to get in legal language or final draft,
Oh,
final
okay.
draft form.
Right, but there was the possibility or the potential of a topic, a new section.
Yeah, I'd like to get that in there. Just have,
Heroes.
Is that going to be too rushed?
I have to look more into the Hometown Hero project, and find out what that entails, but I would say 2 meetings, because we need
So
to
go to
figure
the
out
end of
where they're
March?
gonna go.
yeah, why not, end of March? Or early April, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay,
You tell us. Do you want us to put it into April?
yeah, that works.
April?
There's just so many details with that.
Yeah.
So,
First meeting in April then.
okay.
Okay,
That way you got plenty of time.
right, I mean, we
no
don't need
rush
to
on this.
press it, it's been in the jacket. for a
No,
while.
I'm excited about though. I think this is.
Yeah, well, we wanted to finish it, we had it going, and.
Yeah, and Counselor Jordan really should be credited as well for kind of
Right, he's the one that filed
getting
it.
the spark going on this. I think we all had a little hand in what happened over Veterans Park, but
Mm-hmm.
we've gone over that a few times. All right, is that it?
So is there a motion to table to the first meeting in
So
April?
moved.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion
Right, then we
to,
bounced around, let's just make sure we covered everything.
We did, but.
I think so.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You.
This year's been amazing. Juan, you owe me one. That was a lot of stairs for a glass of water. Just saying. I had to go all the way to our office to get you good water because I have. I know the feeling. That's why I bring like a jug. I stopped and asked Ryan, like, is there good water in here?